Hello everyone, welcome to The Voice of Nursing. My name is Adrian Tracy, I'm the CEO of ICG, and today we're very lucky to be joined by Kenny Gibson. Hello. Kenny, welcome to The Voice of Nursing.
Good.
Please introduce yourself and tell us how you became a nurse.
Hello, I'm Kenny Gibson, and why I became a nurse is I started my career when I was 16 years old, left school, and I worked as a laundry assistant in a mental health unit. And at that time, the patients looked after the laundry and the care staff supported them and enabled them. And I enjoyed being with patients, listening to patients, empowering patients, rehabilitating those people working in the laundry so much I became a care assistant. And then as soon as I could, I became a student nurse. And then slowly, once I was qualified, began doing loads of jobs. So nursing, whether it's a career, a lifestyle choice, that's generally how I would say I became a nurse. I got involved in contacting and listening to patients and people.
Very good. And tell us a little bit, it takes up to sort of present day from a career point of view. I know you've done various things along the route, which is a very interesting career for nurses listening to see what opportunities are there.
So I think that passion for listening to people and getting things sorted with patients led me into a management career to begin with. So, like most newly qualified nurses, I was a staff nurse for a while, and then was very fortunate to be asked to apply for a charge nurse's post or a ward manager's post, and got that, and went from ward management into facilitating people and clinicians and carers to do things as a clinical facilitator, and got a real interest in research and audit and making things better first time and making things right for patient care and for the practitioners. And so I did a stint as a nurse tutor. I did a stint as a suicide prevention nurse in Fife, between Fife and Edinburgh. I've done various jobs learning the science of nursing, and more recently, over the last 15 years or so, I've come into management roles, appreciating that I'm there to inspire clinicians and nurses to do the right thing through a system leadership role. So I've come through being an assistant director of primary care commissioning, into being assistant director of public health commissioning, and more recently I was very fortunate to become the national NHS safeguarding, the head of safeguarding for the NHS. So, but I think at the heart of all of that is that thing that you're developed in, facilitated to be as a nurse. What's the right thing to do for the person, or the population, or the family, or the community, and how do I get there at pace and at scale? So it's that skill that you learn under the science of nursing. Assess something, plan with evidence, deliver that, and then evaluate that to see how to go. So whether it's an individual patient or a group of families, it's that same scientific modelling that I tend to use, the theories of nursing and the theories of just making things better for citizens that I tend to use.
Tell us a little bit about those three different roles, because they're obviously quite different spaces. Be really interesting to hear the challenges in both, but some of the successes.
Yes. You would think they're quite different, but what I would reflect is they're actually very similar. Okay. So as someone in charge of primary care contracts, you're trying to inspire general practices and GPs to do the right thing by their registered list for a limited budget. Okay. As being the director of public health commissioning, you're looking to inspire vaccinators and inspire screening people, and then screening other providers to work at scale across a whole population, just to make sure that everyone that should be vaccinated or everyone that should be screened is receiving it in a timely way. And then as a national head of safeguarding, my job is to look to see within a very limited budget how we can socialise and normalise safeguarding in busy providers, in busy communities. So whilst the The outcome is different, the process is the same. It's inspiring best practice within a limited budget, and it goes back to something I learned very quickly as a nurse, and particularly working in a national role, is we're here to think like a patient and act like a taxpayer. So we're here to deliver best practice with compassion, and we're here to deliver budgeting and finance and management with compassion as well.
You mentioned inspiring.
Yes.
How do you, because they're different populations and different groups.
They are.
With different reputations, which would be fair to say. How do you go about inspiring those people?
I think I picked up from my mental health background that I have to relate to the person who's in front of me. So if it's a GP who's in front of me, I'd relate to them as a clinician to clinician, but also as a commissioner as a contractor. And I think I've had to learn to have honest, adult conversations with people, that the NHS, just like I am, I can't do everything. I can do anything, but I can't do everything. The NHS can do anything, but it can't do everything. And whether it's a GP contractor, or whether it's a director of public health out in local authority land, or whether it's a provider who's struggling to deliver, or whether it's a clinician struggling to cope with safeguarding, I have learned I need to listen to that person, I need to empathise with that person, but ultimately I need to get that person on board with what the NHS is about, and that's effective care, evidence-based care at a reasonable cost, because the NHS is at times looking to be unaffordable.
It's a challenge.
It's a huge challenge.
And for people who don't know what safeguarding is,
Yes.
because it's a term,
It is.
Can you tell us, give a bit more detail about what safeguarding means and what head of safeguarding, what your role is?
So I have a role that has to listen to most people. I'm a chief listener, I call myself. I listen to clinicians, I listen to services, I listen to providers, I listen to citizens themselves about what their challenges are. It used to be very confused with child protection, and it isn't. So you cannot help but be impacted at the moment about the press, the rise of serious violence with and against teenagers, the rise of sexual exploitation, the rise of modern slavery, the rise of other lenses of safeguarding such as human trafficking and radicalisation. And it's my job, having listened and ask questions, it's my job to manage a team of people to draw up protocols that can make the provider and the citizen a bit more secure in their community, a bit more confident in their services, signpost them to where they can go and get safeguarding services from their GP or their district nurse or their health visitor, their school nurse, or even from the hospital that they're going into. If they don't feel safe, it is a safeguarding issue, because it means they won't access services. So a lot of it is about listening, a lot of it is about reading the horizon and the political imperatives.
It's an interesting one at the moment.
Absolutely. But whether we're in the grip of Brexit, the government still have to take notice that teenagers are being in gangs. There's a rise in drug use and substance misuse. There's a rise in domestic abuse and violence. And all of those things are safeguarding matters. We tend to call it contextual safeguarding. Because it can impact any one of us as a citizen. From about the age of 12, we could be involved in gangs or county lines. Young adults are involved in gangs and county lines, and families feel the pressure of just family tensions and substance misuse and drug and alcohol and domestic violence all the time.
Could you tell us maybe 2 or 3 things that are going on in the safeguarding world then at the moment, especially about a lot of young people, a lot of young people with the as you're talking about from the ages of 12 upwards, facing some real challenges.
I think exploitation generally is on the rise. So cognitively we know that, so using my mental health background, cognitively we know that 12-year-olds are frequently using social media. and therefore they can be susceptible to being exploited by gangmasters or radicalisers or human traffickers. But let's take county lines. So 12-year-olds will be very much impressed, if they're from an impoverished family, they'll be very much impressed with the offer of £300 a week to just deliver a few parcels. And then that escalates over a few weeks to, let me give you £3,000 a week to deliver a few boxes of stuff. And then they'll be very much impressed by, do you want to do this more regularly? Because it helps their parents or their family build up money, etc. And it also gets them nice clothes and, you know, kudos and street cred. But then very quickly under county lines, gangmasters and exploiters will then turn that to their disadvantage, and often after about 3 months these young people, because they don't have the adult coping strategies, go from a few £100,000 a week into £1,000 a week, and then using a mobile phone they're asked to do something quite violent to someone else. It may be a rape of a young woman, it may be a knife crime in front of someone, and to videotape it. And that video is then the gangmaster's permission to then begin a very abusive, exploitative relationship with these teenagers by the time they're 15, 16. So they've turned in from earning money into, I've got something on you.
Now you'll do what you...
And now you'll do what we want for nothing. And so they become a victim. And what we've had to learn to do under safeguarding is work with these perpetrators of crime. Transporting drugs is a crime, but in fact they're a victim of county lines. So we're having to work with police forces to say, you know, yes, the person must be arrested, but if you think of their journey into the criminal space, they're actually a victim of the gangmaster, because they've been exploited as a 12-year-old on the basis of money, £300, £3,000, and then exploitation to create a violent incident on YouTube.
And are you seeing that throughout the country?
Yeah. Class, demographic, venue has no barrier. I mean, we see it more in children who might be vulnerable to poverty, so they want to make some money for their family at 12 years old, 13, 14. We see it in rich families as they become rebellious against, they have everything, and what excitement can they do? And we particularly see it in looked after children or looked after young people who in that age range 16 to 18 are beginning to realise that their foster parents are likely not to be their parents when they're 18, 19, and most of us at 18, 19 still need that parental guidance. So that transition period of looked after children is quite important. So these gangmasters, as they're called, or radicalisers, have actually scientifically worked out who are the most vulnerable children and young people, how can I exploit that person with their vulnerability, and then how do I optimise that so that I get them to do what I need them to do within a few months. It's incredibly powerful methodologies of manipulation and exploitation, and that's just around gangs, it's around county lines, it could be around human trafficking, you know, it can even be around coercion in a family situation, an uncle coercing nephews or nieces to do it for them. So whether it's family coercion or an external gang master manipulating someone on social media or with smartphone and smart technology, it's on the increase, yes.
How do you stop that?
I think you stop it like what I've learned again through my nursing career is you've got, whether it's a patient telling us about horrible life situations, nurses have a trusted role we learn.
Most trusted profession, number one every time. Yeah.
We're the most trusted profession in the most trusted organisation globally called the NHS, and I use that tactic. I think we've got to have that trusted communication, adult conversation with our communities. We've got to look towards our community safety colleagues, or police. I tend to call them community safety colleagues, because it's less perhaps toxic with some demographic teenagers. You've got to have an honest communication with communities to say, this is a real issue in your population. I know you don't want to hear it, but exploiting young women is a hot issue in this community, or in this housing estate, or in this culture. And unless we can have an honest conversation about it, we cannot then begin preventing it or disrupting it. But in the old traditional way, we don't have that contextual safeguarding data set. We know how much domestic abuse is happening that's reported. We know how much drugs are taken. We know how much county lines is actioning. We know how much modern slavery and human trafficking is happening, but no one's actually, until now, taken those data sets together into contextual safeguarding and said, this community is impacted by these volumes of safeguarding. Now, that's no different to me doing a barrage of tests on you, taking your blood pressure, testing your urine, checking your eyes, checking your hearing, to tell you how well you are at 60. So as a man, you'll have an NHS health check. All I'm doing as a nurse in my job is looking at a population level. What are the indicators of secure well-being, emotional, mental health and safeguarding? What are the indicators for that population or place? And what do we need to do to disrupt it? How do we build someone's resilience to not needing to work for a gangmaster? What do we need to do for young women to say it is okay if someone wants you to have sex with them, for you to be able to know? Me Too campaign is empowering me. I will have sex with the person I need to have and want to have sex, not because you want to manipulate me. So we look at these indicators at a population, and then we should be putting in key messages or social movement messages to inspire young people to be more resilient.
So resilience and confidence.
It's resilience and confidence in order that 15-year-old brain can have an adaptive conversation to say, this is wrong, and I need to be a 15-year-old and say, no, I will not have you tease me on social media and groom me. No, I will not buy into gangmaster syndrome. But we've got to have that adult conversation. But this is no different to any other public service industry. It took us 10 years, 12 years, 15 years for drunk driving to become a crime. Yeah? Smoking. Yeah. Sex without contraception or barrier. These are hugely sensitive issues for populations, particularly where faith and politics collide, because no rich family wants to think their son is a drug runner. No poor faith family wants to think their 12-year-old is out until 7 o'clock at night delivering parcels. But unless we're having this conversation with families, they don't know where that young person is getting the money, and to some extent they're just delighted the money's coming because of poverty. So it is about looking at the analysis, as I do with you. I look at the analysis, I draw up some options, and then work with partnerships, because Kenny can't deliver. I'm a single person with a small team. I can do anything, but I can't do everything. And so I've had to learn to say, right, the plan of action is this. Okay, trauma-informed care tells us to do this, and therefore which community assets needs to deliver it? because the NHS will not be able to solve this. The NHS will pick the stab off the street, patch the 14-year-old boy who's murdered in a moped. It will.
That's after the event, isn't it? You're trying to get the cause right.
We're trying to get the causal thing through looking at psychology of communities, health, economics, things like that, to say what upstreaming prevention do we need to do in gangs, exploitation, etc., and safeguarding moments. There will still be horrible adults that do nasty things. There will still be criminals, and we're never going to deal with everything, but provided we can work effectively with police education around safeguarding, then I think we can empower youngsters to feel more, I don't want to do that, it's wrong, and maybe we can shame some adults into not doing it.
Yeah, the intention. And that probably leads us nicely onto some of the portfolios you're managing.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about some of them.
So my portfolios are wide ranging. It's mainly the horrible stuff. So it ranges from child protection issues, it ranges from sexual exploitation of children, it ranges human trafficking, it will range domestic abuse and violence, it will range the sort of infrastructures to cope with such things as dark web. So all of those things that make you, me, and particularly young people vulnerable to exploitation and abuse, they're now part of NHS safeguarding brand. Because we firmly believe that whether you're a system leader like me, whether you're a provider, chief executive, whether you're a commissioner buying services, whether you're a practitioner on the ground, whether you're a receptionist, we have such a branded high trust product that we're the eyes and ears of safeguarding. And so therefore, if we hear something, see something, or our spider senses are tingling, because it's often about intuition, then we ask the question, is everything okay at home? You know, I notice you've got a bruise in your arm. Is everything okay at home? So we encourage the system to be curious, and particularly if you're a practitioner, to be even more curious. If I can give you an example. If children come in for vaccines, are you a dad?
I am. I've got three little boys.
3 little boys. So under the age of 1, they've all been offered 12 vaccinations. And every time they went for vaccinations, the baby grow was taken off. Yes. Now the baby grow was taken off for a reason.
Yeah, so they wouldn't poo on it usually.
Well, yes, poo or chocolate, poo or chocolate, or upchuck. It isn't. It's so that clinician can just check the limbs for pinches and punches. Yes, because unfortunately a small number of parents cannot cope with children, and pinches become punches. And it's more common 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas. And it's very common during festive holidays, because parents together with family, with financial worries, maybe a bit of mental health problems, plus the tension of alcohol, are a toxic trio. Mental health, unemployment or homelessness, and financial worries, and alcohol, they're a toxic trio. And we know that when families have to be together for a 4-day weekend, or a whole week on holiday that's cost a fortune abroad, parents, children, that's when we begin seeing pinches become punches. So there's a seasonality to safeguarding that we have got to be cognizant of, because neglect will become pinches and punches become abuse. And that's tried and tested under adverse childhood experiences and trauma-informed care. And most families cope, absolutely, the vast majority of families cope. But because of life struggles and tensions, a few families don't. And this is why we have to be very cognizant that if a parent is stressed, what can we do to support them cope with children And one of the checks is, does baby have any pinches or punches on their limbs? And it's techniques that we've demonstrated. Other techniques that we've had to learn to do is, as a midwife, that if a woman comes to clinic, it's very often, if she is being abused, the perpetrator, loving perpetrator, will come with them, because it's normally the partner. And we have to find a way of allowing that young woman to give us a sign or a signal that the domestic abuse is there, because it's detrimental to baby and certainly detrimental to the mother. And so we've had to develop these discrete red dot processes where in the cubicle, while she's given a specimen of urine, she can apply a red dot to a urine specimen in case she feels that she's been abused but can't say it. Because quite often...
Did she know that?
Yes, there's signs in maternity units. We use this type of technique, discrete alerts they're called, in mental health units. We use them in outpatient departments now, because...
That's great. Great to hear.
Yeah. Whilst we're a trusted brand as a nurse, that 15 minutes is often not enough to build a rapport.
Yeah, true.
So we have to build it quickly with these discrete processes. So she's not sitting there, and this person abuses me.
Yeah.
She would just apply a little red dot to the specimen and just say, if you can, which indicates to her, if you can you take me on my own, and I may be able to disclose modern slavery, domestic abuse and violence.
So it gives you a safe environment to flare up that there's an issue,
yes,
isn't it?
Absolutely.
You know.
Particularly if the alleged perpetrator is sitting with them, yes. And that's not uncommon.
Okay.
Perpetrators are coercive enough to manage and control the victim of domestic abuse and violence.
So you see a lot of horrible stuff, unfortunately, Kenny, by the sound of it?
Yeah, not now. Because I'm in a system leader, I have to hear it.
You hear about it?
I hear about it. I listen about it. I certainly read it on social media. But then, you know, that's what we're trained to do as a nurse.
True.
Is there's a professional rigour to hearing it, processing it, giving the person options for it, and then divesting ourselves of it. You learn very quickly, deep listening it's called, you learn very quickly to process it, and then you must be supervised to divest it.
Yeah.
Because you can't live that person's life for them. So at the end of the day, I'm Kenny, who's not a nurse, who is not the National Head of Safeguarding. I'm Kenny, Bob's dog walker.
Yeah, okay.
I'm Kenny, Alice's neighbour.
Yeah.
So those type of things. You've got to differentiate in order to protect your own well-being.
No, of course. Well, we talked the nursing mojo.
Yes.
Which I know you wanted to discuss, but you know, obviously some of the stuff you do, you still see the passion and you know how you offer it, which is great.
Yes.
But I know you wanted to talk about nursing, keeping people trying to keep that nursing mojo and that passion for the care.
It is. I think
Can be tough.
It can be hugely tough. Nursing is no less stressful than it was, and yet public expectations are far greater.
Yeah, with double the patients.
Double the patients, double the expectation, and they think we can fix everything. And I think keeping that mojo and that passion is so important. Whilst we're the largest trusted profession, we probably do have amongst some of the biggest burnout. We're far less than ambulance, we're far less than police, but I think nurses need to look to each other to keep that nursing mojo going. What is nursing? What are we there to do? Whether it's a unified voice, whether it's collaborating together, whether it's just mutual aid and support. And I think that's where, even as a system leader, it is absolutely critical, no matter where you are in the pecking order, you must be nursing mojo. You must keep on going back to that point that why did I go from a laundry assistant to being a care assistant to being a student nurse to doing this? Kenny hasn't changed my mojo. I'm just delivering nursing for a population now as opposed to an individual citizen. So I think whether you call it dedication or mojo, that's got to be refreshed. I mean, I certainly chose to do it as a system leader by doing my return to practice.
Okay.
So it's some of the best.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I've been a nurse for 20 years. I mean, I've been a nurse now for 37 years. So about 17 years ago, I was sitting in my office and I began realising I was out of touch with nurses and nursing. So I began looking to see how to get that mojo back. You know, I was destined to be director, and that was very administrative and very system leadership. And so I decided to apply for a return to practice course. And I was challenged to begin with because I had my registration hadn't lapsed, but I sort of pushed back on the challenge and said, no, I feel the need to get reinvigorated. And so I spent my 10 days at university, 1 day a week for 10 weeks, and I spent my 2 days a week for 10 weeks in a ward as a staff nurse, doing drug rounds, doing dressings, listening to care assistants, listening to families, and it was absolutely enlightening. And now I'm a part-time bank staff nurse and also a dementia carer. Okay. So it really did give me that balance back, because when you're a system leader as a clinician, it could be very corporate, you know. It could be very bureaucratic.
You're very far away from the patient, aren't you?
Yes, you are.
And the patient's reality is the customer.
Yes, you'd think that, but I mean, as a nurse, on our organisation, 400 people, 1.7% of them will have a mental health illness. Yeah. 2.3% of them will be diabetic. I think the thing I've learned as a system leader is my staff, my team, my colleagues, my organisation is just a community. You know, it is a community as a town is. Yeah. And just because we work in NHS England does not make us protected from diseases. You know, I've had colleagues who have gone through breast cancer scares. I've had to process one of my personal assistants for early onset dementia. Yeah. And so these management things I have to do with people have also got to be cognizant of the fact that Kenny as a nurse, I'm not the diagnostician, I'm not the therapist, but if they're showing signs of ailments or long-term conditions, I can be a bit more compassionate to them than perhaps the system might allow me to do as a general manager.
Yeah.
Because and also because I pick things up. Yeah. You know, I know when someone's energy levels is dropping consistently. I know when someone's morale, motivation, and psyche is dented maybe by reactive depression. I know the impact of transformation on individuals. I know the stress of not knowing what your job is going to be next year because of efficiencies in the health service. I'm a mental health nurse. Yeah. And that empathy with them can often lead them to be a bit more open with you, a bit more transparent with you, but you've got to have the boundary of I can see what's happening to you and this might explain it. And that can not only be about emotional well-being, it could be about women's problems, it could be about male problems. You know, I'm not adverse to talking to young men about smoking cessation or testicular examination. I'm not adverse to talking to women about cervical screening in an open area or breastfeeding.
But it's also showing you care.
Yes.
So all of that, it's just showing you care, and people appreciate that.
Yes, it's that empathetic caring that. So I'm known, I let it known I'm a nurse, I let it known I'm a dementia specialist.
Well, the first thing you told me was you were a mental health nurse.
Yes.
No, this director or anything, head of anything, you said I'm a mental health nurse. First thing you said to me.
And that's where I get my most humbling experiences from, you see. Because deep down, I'm still suffering from imposter syndrome. Deep down here, I'm still a 16-year-old lad from a tiny village in Scotland who's sorting out the sheets in a mental health unit and the laundry in a mental health unit. And, at 54, I have to walk to Parliament across Westminster Bridge for a parliamentary sort of question time, and I still have imposter syndrome.
I think after 37 years you're probably okay now, Kenny, to be honest with you. Obviously nursing as a whole, what do you sort of see the future holding for nursing over the next couple of years?
I think we have a new chief nurse, we have a new process. I don't think nurses ever throw the baby out with the bathwater, so we will still have the fabulous stuff about leading change, adding value. I think what will happen though is the rise of newly qualified nurses and student nurses, because they're not digital dinosaurs. They're absolutely social movement natives, and to see their voice. So these are people that talk the sort of language of young adults. And something changed in the last decade around that. Previously it was, if Kenny came to visit you, you'd roll out the red carpet and the National Head of Safeguarding was visiting you, so mind your P's and Q's.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful that that doesn't happen now. So I have conversations with student nurses about reality. I've got conversations with mental health avengers on social media about reality for them. I've got conversations wide and far with something called Early Risers Club.
Yeah, okay, I've seen that on Twitter.
And, things like that really are enlightening, because it's not positional leadership, it's not even title situational leadership, it is true compassionate leadership. That if an 18-year-old first year student can contact the National Head of Safeguarding and ask them a question or make a comment, that person is destined to be empowered as a practitioner. So I think we've come out of the hierarchy into the social movement, and that will make a huge difference. We are going to have system leaders at 30 years old, very shortly, because they listen well, they're global in their perspective, and they will deliver quickly.
And they're more sharing of best practice, aren't they, these days? The Academy of Fabulous stuff, which we love. You hear things on that, and someone's doing things with I remember the one we heard was the one where they put for dementia patients, putting the stars on the ceiling that they do for children. So then the dementia patients can go to the toilet and things like that in the middle of the night, and that came out, and that was shared. And you hear little things like that, and you're like, that's getting shared across to make all the services better.
Yes, it's now. What we've learned about anything quality improvement, you cannot impose it from the mothership. You've got to have a groundswell of passion, energy, commitment, mojo, whatever you want to call it, and celebrate it upwards, and be proud of it. And I think that's a word that nursing has maybe lost sight of until recently, a pride. I know the new tactic is, let's get children involved in nursing, whether you're male, whether you're female, whether you're transgender, whether you've got Asperger's syndrome, whether you've got autism. Let's have nursing as a career option for anyone, regardless of how you're coming through the school system. We'll still have the challenge of academic qualifications at the end of it.
Yeah, that comes up a lot.
Because I didn't leave school with a higher as it was then. I had to go back to school once I had to go back to evening classes and get my higher O-level and my higher qualification before I was allowed to go to nurse training.
Right, okay.
But education, standard education for me didn't give me a mojo.
No, it didn't give the passion to then do it.
The laundry did, the patients did, and then I knew I had to go back and study a science at a higher level, and I did it in my own time. And you've got to work with that passion, particularly for the academic side.
What do you think about the nursing associate role? It kind of comes up, different people, because different people have different opinions.
A lot of healthy opinions and some hierarchical opinions. I think the more options we have for people to come in, get on with having a professional registrant qualification, the better. I think there are people like me that leave school with a passion. Let's convert that passion to a degree of academic and take them through the associate role, or apprenticeship role might be something, because not all of us are gifted at secondary school.
No.
Because there's no mojo there. Whereas cognitively, I'm very conscious that when I was interviewing students, it suddenly dawned on me that I cannot teach someone with higher level qualifications and O-level, a GCSE qualification, I cannot teach them to care.
No.
It's here. It's here. You're either a caretaker or a caregiver.
Yeah.
And it's here. I can inspire someone to be a little bit more academic in order to get to their mojo place.
The teacher will, the skills, sorry, but you need the will.
Yes, yeah. You've got to have that, I want to make things better for others, whether it's individual. You've got that, it's got to be an inherent trait in someone. But nursing opens up mental health, it opens up children, it opens up adults, it opens up acute, it opens up community. There's a vast array of mojos that we can get into.
And if you're advising someone who is thinking about going into a nursing career, about why they would do it?
I think if you're thinking about a nursing career, my advice is to shadow someone. Contact someone and arrange a few days just so that you get a sense of what it is, because there's a lot of misconceptions around what is nursing. They're too numerous to mention the nursing roles. It's that sort of global citizen role. I mean, I've never worn a uniform for 22 years. Okay. I've never worn a uniform, and yet I'm a nurse. And then maybe just to get a taste of what care is work as a care assistant. Whether it's in a care home or someone's care or on a ward or at a weekend, work as a care assistant. Get used to working as a team. Get used to working at the pace of patient care. Get used to the sort of techniques of hand washing, control of infection, handling and moving, all of those physical skills that nursing are taught and learned to use so well. So go and shadow someone, interview people. Don't just rely on what your mother said about it or your uncle said about it, which is the usual familial route. Yeah. I went into nursing because my mum was a nurse, my uncle was a nurse, my two cousins were nurses. That's why I thought about mental health. I didn't ever think I'd get to be a nurse because I left school with no qualifications. So, but get a shadowing experience. Talk to someone that can mentor you into what you need to be. So the career progression, because you will need qualifications, and any system leader should be able to support you. Every month I get someone saying, "I'm thinking about a career in the health service. Can I come and meet you?" So delighted.
It's really good you open up your time for that.
I'm going to need them to look after me. That's what I see. 54, I've only got 30 years before I need someone to look after me.
I think you'd be right. And I suppose, Lars, sort of finishing up, what do you sort of think the three main challenges we're facing in nursing over the next couple of years, from your perspective?
I think, for me, the three main challenges are: when I'm in a safeguarding arena, I ask nurses, who are the system leaders? 1%, 2% put up their hands, and yet they're leading the system. They're leading the system of patient-clinician relationship. That is a system, because if you don't do what I need you to do when I'm not there, you'll fall into ill health. It's called concordance. And one of the challenges, we have got to get nurses seeing themselves as one-on-one system leaders, one-on family system leaders, one-on community system leaders, because that nurse isn't there all the time. So they've got to leave that person, that family, that community with adaptive resilience skills to let them cope when they're not there. Because out of hospital, they have to be independent. So system leadership skills, that's the biggest challenge. I think the other challenge is to get nurses to think population. It's all very fabulous in an intensive care unit doing ventilation to one person with 2 nurses 24 hours a day. But in reality, that's a tiny, minuscule amount of population. In the meantime, 8.1 million people in London, 80 million people across England need population intervention to keep them fitter, weller, longer. So I think nurses need to come out the intensive care, stethoscope round their neck, and actually see how to impact prevention and health promotion at a population level. It's too late when they've had a heart attack in coronary care unit. We need to get them having less salt and fitter.
It's the prevention and wellness.
It's a prevention and wellness agenda. And the third thing is nurses have got to think budgets. We pay taxpayers' funds. Every time we take something off a shelf, a piece of equipment, we've got to think like a taxpayer. And the NHS has got to be affordable. I was in a hotel the other day, and I was listening to this. They'd obviously delivered a whole host of equipment to a hospital the year before, and these 2 guys, it was early morning, these 2 guys were talking about the state of equipment in the cupboards in the wards that they'd just visited, and they couldn't get through to the nurses. Why do you not look after the equipment? Why have you rolled the flex up the wrong way? Why have you not calibrated the machine? Nurses need to look in all the resources we use, as every time we don't look after something properly and let it deteriorate, we've actually wasted taxpayers' money and technology. So I think nurses being system leaders, please. Nurses being population prevention leads, absolutely. And nurses being resource managers around all the plethora of equipment. I mean, Europe's largest employer, nurses are the most prolific employee, and yet some of us have forgotten that looking after equipment, it's actually standard practice, or not wasting equipment. Not chucking out a dressing pack if you've only used 1 swab. So resource management is really the 3 things that are the biggest challenges, I would say.
Very good. Kenny, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
It's been lovely. Just to finish off, any message you'd like to give to our nurses?
Keep up the hard work. We are England, if not Europe's most trusted employee. We all do a fabulous job every day. Keep it up, but also celebrate it. Get out there onto social media and tell people, let's learn from excellence as opposed to learn from incidents. Let's learn from the excellence that we all deliver.
Superb. Kenny, thank you for your time. Thank you to all our nurses, doctors, carers that look after us all. Thank you for watching The Voice of Nursing. We'll catch up with you again soon.